I first, since I have to sort of start from the beginning, thank you very much for having me invited here for the AFMC lecture. I'm very happy to be here at this esteemed institute, and thank you very much. Yeah. It's a privilege and indeed a pleasure to be sharing talk time with so many speakers who have very interesting stories to tell and very interesting journeys. So I'm very happy to be here with them and sharing this talk time again. But I wonder what makes you as an audience come here. What was the reason? Whether it was curiosity to know something about someone who has rebooted, why people reboot, what is the reason for rebooting and how they do it, or is it just to gain inspiration from others who have rebooted while you're considering it. So we all have interesting journeys and interesting ideas, and I did reboot, and I would urge you, considering it, go ahead and do it. Easier said than done, but I was a person who did my microbiology, post-graduation in microbiology, and thereafter I went to selling books, maps, and prints, the old, as you would call them, the old antiquarian books, maps, and prints. A totally different field. I became an entrepreneur in this field. And what I started off with was studying the present and the future. And I went on actually to study the past, specifically the pre-colonial and the colonial past, which would be the art history, the maps, the books, which we would call the objects, the art in today's times. So it's entirely the entire period from the 15th to the 18th century on Indian history. And apart from that, what I also do is I conceptualized two companies. First began with Rare Finds, then went on, started Hindustan Revisited, through which they were conceptualized because I wanted to sell these things to people who were also interested in collecting them, who shared similar interests, and also to sell these things, make them available to people who wanted to acquire them, that is, buy them. So basically in today's times, these are collectibles, they are used as decor items, and of course they tell you stories about our history and our art from that period. Having done that, having started companies, on the academic front, what I did was I had to relearn things. I had to redefine my skills. So I went on to study Indian aesthetics. I went on to do art history. And today I have reached such a stage where my specialty is art. And I'm a faculty member for a lot of institutes and universities. And of course, I also am associated with museums, where I am again a faculty member for curatorial studies on this subject, on which I am an author. So that's what I did. And of course, from selling books and from studying microbes, I went on to studying books and maps and prints and dealing in them. But this journey was not easy. It was not simple. And I could do it because that was my interest. There was something I was interested in, and I sort of converted my hobby into this. But the decision was not simple. Okay? I deferred for the longest time. I could not choose, I could not decide what I wanted to do. And because I could not choose, I had what was my eureka moment. And I thought, I'm going to do this part-time and I will pursue this. But I could not break away with the traditional training. And till the time that there was a very dramatic situation where I was walking and on a road which is close to my residence, and you have, that was before Swachh Bharat came on, and there used to be designated garbage bins. And somebody had discarded a book, an old book of course, which was on the history of the Iransha Fire Temple. The Iransha is a pilgrimage spot for Parsis. And that was a very rare book, a very unusual book. And as I was walking by, the person who left it on a wall next to the bin naturally didn't want to discard it in the bin. He would, or she may have been guilty. that I can't discard such a nice book, a book which is religious. So it was kept on a wall, and I managed to pass by. I asked around, whether it belonged to somebody. It wasn't there, so I said, let me take it with me. But for me, at that moment, because I was seeking an answer to my inner conflict, it became the divine direction for me. And I decided that, okay, this is what I want to do. I still wouldn't have actually pursued it had my husband not pushed me into it. Because he virtually said at a point, no, you can't do both. You need to do it. But I guess a lot of us would cling on to our earlier training because that is what we are comfortable with. It gives you a sense of comfort. But once that break came, the clean break came, I could give that same amount of commitment, and that I could pursue what I wanted to do with conviction. So that was very important. Now, after I went on to do all working and the whole lot, I came across when I started 2 things which I did not anticipate. My first challenge was my age. I started young. So somehow there was a conception that you have art and you have history, 2 things which are handled by mature people. So even when I was invited to lecture and talk, I actually overheard comments and conversations where I said, she's too young, will she make sense to students who are barely nearly her age? So that was one issue, and the other was my gender. I was trying to work and actually even create a field which was nascent. It was not professionally managed. It was not something which was widely known at the time I started. And of course, with any situation as such, it would naturally be assumed that it's handled by men. So this led to a lot of funny situations, a lot of amusing anecdotes, and sometimes very frankly annoying situations as well due to my presumed identity. But I did not want to reboot my identity, but I wanted to succeed because of it. So, and I'm glad I did, because it was very difficult to break through at that point. And then, of course, I went on, did what I liked. I can say I've been successful. And with success came another problem, again not anticipated. There was another company or another group of people who realized that Rare Finds was a successful concept, was a good name, a good reputation. So they decided to sell products which were basically decor items under the name of Rare Finds. Now, it could not have come at a worse time because I was pregnant with 3 hospital stays because I was just not keeping well. And frankly, at that moment, I was like, I wasn't bothered about who did what, because I was not even working. But it was a stage where I had worked for something, I had built up this company, I had to protect the company's reputation. I had to sort of face up to the situation and say, I have to do something about it. And there again, I had my family who said, if you think you can't manage, we will do it for you. But this is something that you have worked, you have developed, and you need to do something. You can't let somebody just walk over you. And thank God for that. And of course, there were many people who sort of came and helped. I got the most wonderful lawyer, but I had to fight, and I had to fight a copyright case against the person. And so if you, and especially the youngsters, and if you think of doing something, you've done something creative, which is unusual, it is not simple enough to just be successful, but you need to take care of it. And you have to stop others from misusing it. I learned that the hard way. Okay? Now, all this was very well. I mean, all businesses have issues, all startups have issues. But then what was important for me was I was enjoying what I was doing, right? And as a successful academic professional, as a successful entrepreneur, I'm very happy doing what I did, and I'm glad I rebooted. But the greatest satisfaction comes from the fact that while I went about doing my work, while I was working towards establishing my profession, a byproduct, if I can call it so, was that I was succeeded in changing the mindset of people towards these rare books, maps, and prints. The earlier mindset was neglect, largely due to unawareness. And as a result, most of these things would be lost due to the ravages of time. Because of the exhibitions and the kind of articles and the interviews and whatever, you know, the awareness increased. And because of that, people, I know, and the knowledge that I have that, you know, there is widespread realization that these things have to be preserved and kept well, not just amongst the cultural connoisseurs or the collectors, but even amongst the people in general. And that has been a very important development for me, because it makes me, my work as an art historian, worthwhile. To know that, for me to know that all the work, all my effort has gone into the preservation of these things for the future. So we have ensured that the future generations also get to see all that we have preserved, and it's not lost due to the ravages of time. So that was what made my rebooting worthwhile. And you know, there are always a lot of things which make you happy, which you know, which make your efforts worthwhile. But for me, this was the best part. It's been a wonderful journey. I've met some very lovely people, and I keep on meeting them, very knowledgeable people in their own fields. And changing your profession, you know, when you set out to do something like that, you don't know what you're going in for. But listen to your heart. If you all feel like, yes, I want to reboot, reboot. It's just go ahead and do it. What's the worst thing? You're only giving yourself a chance. So, thank you. Okay? Done?